Working. Sweet. Get comfy. I gotta get a stand one of these days. What time is it? I think it's 6 o'clock. Sweet. Okay, I'm just gonna start. How do I turn this off? There we go. Sorry. I still gotta figure out how to use this thing properly. Okay. Hey, still don't have a planned introduction, per usual. I have nothing planned. Second time streaming. You'd think I have something planned by now. I don't. So today I wanted to talk about my rock bottom because after my introduction last week, I thought I should probably expand on the why the fuck do I want to do this. And this is why. My rock bottom. Decided to go into that in depth today. So trigger warnings and all that good stuff. Suicide is going to be a big topic. Depression, anxiety, not going to sugarcoat, not going to hold anything back. I'm just going to give it to you straight. And I will talk about my attempts. I will tell you what I did. And I will tell you what I thought about doing. And I will probably go into detail. And if you don't want to listen to it, mute it, pause it, skip it. If it's too much for you, that's totally okay. And if you relate with it, I'm sorry that you relate with it, but also glad I can be there for you. And let's see, alcohol use. I think those are really the big trigger warnings. Just overall, not going to be holding back. And yeah, we're going to get vulnerable. And it's going to get ugly. Yay! But I have a really awesome kitty t-shirt. It says, "Show me your kitties." It's amazing and I love it. I'm in bed and I'm in my pajamas because that's kind of the best way to tell this story. Okay, I'm cozy. Alright, rock bottom. I gotta get a stand. And I will at one point because I talk with my hands and my friend told me that. And he's correct. I do. Okay. Alright, rock bottom for me was in 2016. But it really started when I was 13, like I mentioned last week. But when I was 20 years old in 2015, June rolled around. I had signed a contract with Seattle Pacific University. I was their student ministry coordinator, which meant I was the pastor of the floor, believe it or not. Super spiritual, whatever bullshit. And as soon as that contract was up in June, the contract basically said no sex before marriage, no drugs, no alcohol. When I was religious and whatever, I didn't care. But June rolled around and I thought, I'm going to get drunk. So that's exactly what I did. Grabbed a couple friends who were over the age of 21. I grabbed a whole thing. I think it was tequila. Just downed the whole thing by myself. And that was where it started. That was June of 2015. Started with one thing of peach tequila or vodka. I think it was. God, I can't remember. And then that whole summer was a drunken blur. What did I even do? I worked. I somehow held a job. I was drunk for most of it. I was on Tinder. I was manipulating people to buy drinks for me. And kind of went through a hoe phase to get said drinks. And at that point, I didn't realize that my drinking was going downhill, but it was. People around me were starting to notice that the way I interacted with alcohol was very different. There was no sipping and enjoying. It was, there's alcohol in front of me. 2 seconds later, where's more alcohol? It's fucking gone. I drink whole bottles of wine by myself in under 5 minutes and be fine. I would drink 8 shots in a night and be fine. I would just keep going and going and going until I blacked out. There was no happy tipsy middle. There was no light buzz and I stopped. That was the problem. There was no stop. And then I honestly can't remember very much of that summer because I drove a lot and I was blackout drunk a lot, and I'm really lucky that no one died. I'm lucky that I didn't die. Um, and then school started. I was a junior. I was on the dance team. I was on a research team. I was a nanny, believe it or not. A drunken nanny. I was never drunk on the job. That I can say honestly. Also, I'm switching arms because my arm is very tired. But I was a junior in college at this point, 20 years old, October. And I had plenty of friends. I was going on dates. I think I was even seeing a counselor. And on the outside, everything looked great. Bright future. I was going to graduate in a year, performing at basketball games. I'd go out on weekends. And at first it was, I'm just going to drink Friday, Saturday. Sundays are okay too. And then it was, I'm going to drink when I don't have classes. And then it was, I'm going to drink when I don't have tests the next day. And then it was, I'm going to drink every night. And then it was, I got a C on this test. Great. I was a 4.0 student up until that quarter. And then that quarter, I got my first C in college. And for a lot of people, that's not a big deal. But for me, that was a big deal because I was a 4.0 student. And all of a sudden, I didn't give two shits anymore. And I didn't realize it at this time. But being suicidal, there's two kinds of being suicidal. There's actively being suicidal, where you try to kill yourself actively. And then there's passive suicide, being passively suicidal, which is what I was for a long, long time. I'm not planning my suicide. I'm not talking about it. But I'm not going to look both ways before I cross the street. I'm going to drive when I'm blackout drunk. And if I die, I die. I don't really care anymore. You stop with the precautions that most people live with. You stop trying to preserve your life. You stop doing the little checks. It's being passively suicidal. And you know what? Nobody really notices. And that's why it goes unchecked for so long. I started joking about dying more. One of the classic red flags. There we go. And it got worse and worse. Winter break came, and I turned 21 on January 2nd, 2016. And this is how I spent my 21st birthday. And I'll tell you all about it, and you can tell me if I'm an addict or not. I had friends who wanted to take me out. My parents got dressed up for a nice birthday. At midnight, I was in a Safeway parking lot. I had a pack of beer in my hands. And the only time I left my house that day was to go get more beer. I passed out on the floor watching Netflix. I had snacks, I had Netflix, and I had alcohol. And my cat was snuggling me. I said no to a fancy Seattle waterfront dinner. I said no to friends going bar hopping because I was 21 and I can buy my own booze. And now I can drink alone. And I can stop getting shit from people for the way I drink. I can drink how I want. I can drink when I want, which was all the time. And I could do it in peace. That was my 21st birthday. How did you spend yours? Did you spend it alone at home with your cat and Netflix and alcohol and that was it? And said no to everybody that loves you? That was me. That was what I did. And that was what I did for the next 2 months. And I didn't know how bad it was getting. I didn't even know how depressed I was getting. I was still taking my antidepressants. I was still going to dance team. I was still doing research. I was still holding down my job. I still looked like I had it together. And the only people who saw me falling apart were my housemates and my poor, poor roommate. They saw me stumble home drunk every night. They saw me get dropped off at the doorstep drunk. Total mess every night. And these were girls who were born and raised in Christian homes, who were conservative, and then there was me. Just a fucking mess. And those girls loved me, put up with me, and I could never thank them enough. They could have very easily reported me and kicked me out. And then I got worse and worse And soon, even my Tinder dates started hating me because I just drank too much. I had a Tinder guy straight up say, "You drink too much." And I was like, aren't Tinder dates supposed to be encouraging this? Isn't this what we're supposed to be doing? No, he said, "You drink too much." And this guy worked in the alcohol industry. He sold it, was around it all the time. And he said I could not hold my alcohol and my relationship with it was not healthy. And I said, "You can fuck all the way off, sir." And that was that. I didn't care. And, you know, I still didn't realize how bad of a place I was in. I thought I was fine. I thought that I still had it together because I was still semi-passing classes. I was in dance team. I was on the research team. I had a job. I was this. I was that. I wore pants every day that I left the house, which was a fucking accomplishment. And then it all came to a head when my roommate's boyfriend reported me for drinking on campus because it was a dry campus. I was livid at first. And then I lied my way out of it. And I was okay. And then that night, after convincing my counselor, after convincing the campus that I did not have a drinking problem, that I was totally fine, went to dance practice, convinced them I was fine, I went over to this boy's house in Capitol Hill, Seattle. I drank basically the entire bottle of wine. And this is where it all goes down really fast. I was used to drinking an entire bottle of wine by myself in 10 minutes, 5 minutes, and being okay. I did that again, except this time I blacked out almost immediately. And the last thing I remember is laughing at Bob's Burgers and this guy being pissed because he didn't get to drink very much of the wine. Apparently I drank it all too quickly. And I thought, well, you snooze, you lose. I giggled at Bob's Burgers, and then the rest of the night is a blur. So what I'm about to tell you next is something that I haven't really talked about much, but most of it is secondhand because I was pretty much gone the whole night, and it is not pretty, so buckle up. I blacked out, and basically the first thing I did was smoke pot. I did that blackout drunk for the first time ever, smoked pot. Apparently I choked and I gagged, and that was the first time I vomited while drinking. And apparently I was freaking out because, one, I couldn't hit the toilet, so I was vomiting all over myself. And two, since it was red wine, I thought I was vomiting up organs, so I was screaming about how I was losing my organs. Not a pretty sight. And then I decided, apparently, I was gonna reveal my plans to kill myself to this random guy who ended up calling a friend because I was so violent and I was pushing him away and trying to lock myself. And at one point, I ran out of his apartment and tried to get my way up to the roof to jump off. And I almost did it, but luckily, in my mind, I feel like I got away and got really far, but I'm pretty sure I got like 10 steps down the hallway before they got me. And then, apparently, I was like, well, fine. If I can't jump off the ceiling, then I'm gonna stab myself. You have sharp objects. You design shit. And I couldn't find anything, and so I grabbed a protractor. And I tried to use it on myself, but it's a fucking protractor. And I broke it because I shoved it against myself so hard. And I had a little scar on my abdomen, and it cut my hand. I have no memory of this, but I remember him telling me it was horrifying. Honestly, I don't know why the fuck he talked to me after this, but bless him. But he told me it was horrifying. And me hearing all of this, I was absolutely shocked because I was like, but I'm fine. What are you talking about? and I try to make light of this. But I was the only one laughing, thinking that was funny. So that happened. And then I got taken home, and my stomach was bleeding a little bit because I guess I'm fucking strong. Might be small, but I'm fucking strong. And my roommates were used to me being dropped off drunk by some strange guy. Except this time he brought a friend. I was covered in vomit, and my stomach was bleeding, and I was saying, I'm gonna die tonight. And my roommate took me to the hospital. But he said, or my roommate had said that I was the one that said, I think I need help. No memory of this. And she said, I don't know what part of you wanted help, but there was a part of you, and thank God she listened to that part. They took me to the hospital, and they said that, so I'm in the ER, downtown Seattle. This is like a Thursday night, and apparently next to me is a guy coming off of meth. Across from me is a guy who'd been stabbed. There were a couple more drug people, and then there's me, dressed nicely, youngest, only girl, yet I was the only one in restraints in that ER that night. Not just like one arm, one leg. Apparently they tried that, but I looked at the nurse and went, I'm gonna break my thumb and get out of this. So I was the youngest, smallest, nicest dressed kid in the ER that night, and I was the only one in 4-point restraints because I was so violent and I was loud and I was screaming. That was who I'd become in my blackout stupor. And I'm not proud of that. That part I don't really laugh at. I can't imagine the nurses watching me. And I don't remember anything else from that night. What I do remember is coming to face with a psychologist, still in restraints, and being fucking confused as to why I had restraints. And she had pages of notes, and I remember looking at her kind of like, what the fuck did you write? We haven't even been talking. And she goes, we've been talking for an hour. She had fucking pages, and I'm like, oh my god, I spilled my deepest, darkest secrets to this bitch. Oh my god, this is not fair. Is this admissible in court? Is that a thing? Am I going to court? Oh god. And I was freaking out. And she saw that I was freaking out, and she was just gentle and kind. So I trusted her. And I remember that feeling I got, that deep despair, that feeling when she looked at me and said, you know, I asked you this when you were blackout drunk, but I want to ask you this now that I think you're sobering up. Do you want to kill yourself? And if you do you have plans? Can you tell me about them? And I remember looking at her with the 4-point restraints and just feeling that void inside you. For anyone that's ever suffered with depression, I think you know what I'm talking about. Where you feel nothing so deeply that it hurts and it sucks you completely dry of life. And I think that was the bottom. Was laying there, just being completely helpless in those restraints. And finally looking at her and saying, yeah, I'm done. There's nothing more for me. And I believed it. And I told her, sober or drunk, I'm done, and I am not scared of death anymore. And I told her exactly how I planned on dying. I told her over spring break, I'd go home, I'd slit my wrist vertically, and lay in a swimsuit in the bathtub, and just take a bunch of sleeping pills and die slowly. It'd be in the bathtub, so it'd be easy to clean up. I'd be in a swimsuit, so it's not awkward for anybody who finds me. I'm not naked. I'd thought it all out. I thought I was being considerate. And I remember her looking at me and just kind of nodding. And then she said, okay, Thanks for being honest. I felt like a huge weight had been lifted off my chest. And then I was referred to suicide watch on the psych ward, and I felt absolutely betrayed by this fucking cunt, because I'm like, I trusted you, and now I'm in suicide watch. But before I went to suicide watch, I guess I became friends with the guy coming off of meth next to me, and I managed to get out of those restraints because I calmed down. And my dad was there. My little brother was there. My mom was there. My housemates were there. My roommate was there. Her boyfriend was there. And I noticed they were all crying. And I didn't understand why. I was trying to make them laugh because I thought it was funny. And then the doctor tried to tell me, you need to know that your liver is failing. You need to stop drinking. And I was like, I just had really good alcohol. That's why I blacked out so quickly. And he said, no, your liver is failing. You need to stop. And I kind of just laughed it off and thought, well, I drink like a fucking champ is what I'm hearing. And I still wasn't taking it seriously because I was like, well, okay, fine. I had this moment of vulnerability and now we're going to take it all back. Like, fuck it. Nope, we're going to go right back to pretending everything's fine. And then I went to psych ward for 6 days. And that'll be a topic for another time. But when I came out of the psych ward, 21 minutes. Okay, I'm gonna try and wrap it up. But coming out of that psych ward, sitting face to face with the school counselor, trying to get cleared to go back to school. That was what I did. I tried to go right back to school and pretend that life was fine. Nothing had changed. It was just a bad night of bad drinking. No one bought it. I did. I fucking bought it. No one else bought it. My dad and I jumped through these hoops and stayed off campus. We went to the counselor to get cleared. We did this, we did that. I switched my medications. I got enrolled in a treatment program that was full. So they referred me elsewhere, but the hospital only followed up on the fact that I met with the treatment place they originally referred me to. So I was like, I got out of treatment. I was proud of that. My roommates were horrified. And then I touched base with another counselor that they referred me to. And I thought, fine, I'll jump through the hoops, get everybody off my back. We're going to laugh about this in a year. Not a big deal. And then I sat in front of that goddamn counselor. I think his name was Chuck. And I was so pissed because he looked at me and said, you can't come back to school. And I said, finals are 3 weeks away. We paid for this semester. Like, what the fuck? Why can't I just go back to school? We did everything you asked. And I was fucking livid. And then 2 days later, I was escorted off campus by security. And I remember sitting in my car. I had my cat in the back and basically everything I owned. I had been kicked off the dance team, kicked off the research team, kicked out of school, didn't have a place to live anymore. I somehow kept my job. Don't know how. But I had my job. I was moving back in with my parents. I had my cat. I had everything I owned in my car. And there was a huge part of me that wanted to just keep driving. Because I lost everything that I had at 21 overnight. I went from popular dance team, research, future looks bright, to she got kicked out of school because she drank too much. And then she was on suicide watch for 6 days. And I lost everything. And I was pissed. I was angry and I was sad. Mostly angry. Disappointed. I was disappointed that I'd been caught. I was mad at all the wrong things. I was sad at all the wrong things. I was sad that I didn't succeed in killing myself. I was mad that I'd been kicked out of school, that I couldn't just pretend it never happened. I was disappointed. I couldn't believe it. I had everything. I had the extracurriculars, I had the job, I had the friends, I had the dates, I had everything. And then all of a sudden I had nothing. I had nothing. And then I drove home. And I laid in that bed, in my parents' guest bed, for a long time, thinking I had nothing. That was my rock bottom. Went from having everything to nothing overnight at 21 years old. And then that started my journey into getting sober, because I ended up seeing my counselor, who ended up getting me into AA. And because I got kicked out of school, I was motivated to go to a better school where I got my degree. I got a better job. I got knee surgery that I've been needing. And I cleaned myself up. I worked on myself. And along the way, I stopped being suicidal. And thank God that that school kicked me out. Because if I hadn't suffered those consequences, I never would have gotten my butt in gear. If I hadn't hit that rock bottom, I never would have gotten back up. Because I didn't know what it was like to lose anything. Because I had never lost anything. Yet, it was like when I was drinking and being self-destructive, that whole summer, that whole year from June to February, I was fearless because I'd never suffered consequences. I was never caught. I wasn't hurt. No one in particular, no one that I cared about hated me. I kept my job. I kept everything I had. And I thought I could pull it off. And then I finally suffered the consequences. All at once. Fucking all at once. And you know what? It could have been a lot worse. I could have had a DUI. I could have killed somebody and I could be dead. But I ended up in the psych ward, kicked out of school, losing everything I had overnight. And thank God for that. Because if I hadn't been knocked all the way down, I would have had nowhere to go. But when you're at your bottom, the only way to go is up. So that's what I did. And I'm not going to sit here and say, what a blessing, whatever. It was fucking hard, and it was fucking miserable. Anyone that sits here and says, oh, I'm so grateful, blah, blah, blah. I'm grateful now, but in the moment, oh my God, I wasn't grateful at all. I wanted Chuck dead. Like, let's be real. But what I learned along the way was that in AA, what I learned was that no one promised me growing and healing were going to be easy. They promised me life would be better. They never, ever said it was going to be easy or a walk through the flowers or whatever. It wasn't going to be sunshine and unicorn farts and shit. They said it was going to be better. And in sobriety, I have walked through some of the toughest shit I've ever gone through. But life is so much better. Not easy. I will never, ever, ever say life got easy. It did not. In fact, it probably got harder. But it got so much better. So that's my rock bottom. That's where I came from. Lost everything overnight that I could have lost at 21. And I know there are people who lost homes and families and who have lost things that are considered way more significant than what I lost. But this is my story. And I lost everything that I could lose at 21. And if anybody says, well, that's not a big deal, you were only 21, fuck you. It is hard. Doesn't matter if you're young, because everybody's monsters looks different. Everybody's rock bottom looks different. Just because you're young doesn't mean your rock bottom isn't significant. You can be 16, and your rock bottom can look different than mine. You can think your rock bottom is no big deal because it wasn't as hard as mine sounded, but you know what? It is a big deal because it's your rock bottom. Someone else's rock bottom might sound 10 times harder than mine, but to them it might just be another Tuesday. Everybody's rock bottom's different. That's okay. So, that's my story. That's my rock bottom. And that's how I got here. Doesn't feel good to look back. But it also does feel good to look back because I've come a long way. 5 years later, still sober. I have a great place to live. I have 2 cats. I have great relationships with my friends, my family. I have a good job. I have a degree. Hopefully off to PA school soon. I got everything back and more after losing it. And I'm okay with that. I still don't have an outro for this. I also still don't have a title for this. I might come up with one at some time. I will probably set up a camera at some time. But for now, I'm okay with this as it is. It's just us hanging out and chatting. Because that's essentially what this is. Us just chatting. So, thanks for listening. I appreciate you being here and listening to my story. I think I will stream next week. Same time, 6 p.m. Pacific. Topic? I don't know. I don't really plan anything. I just gotta wing it. So I think I'm just gonna wing it next time too. Okay. Have a good night. I'm gonna go watch some Netflix and pet my cat. You should do the same. Bye. How do I stop this? Oh, there it is.